Yes, Thembekile, thank you very much for the opportunity. It is all due to the rain, which has primarily, recharged the catchment areas that then flow into the integrated Vaal River system, of which the Vaal Dam is one of the 14 dams. And that is why we've seen such an appreciation of the capacity within the Vaal Dam itself as an example of what is happening in the system as a whole.
And let's speak about the system as a whole. The Vaal Dam is completely full. What is the situation elsewhere in the country? Because we have had some water troubles, especially in the last 5 years or so.
Yes, when we look at the general average across the country, we can see the same kind of appreciation. But obviously, we still have pockets of concern. We know that the Eastern Cape primarily is still struggling. It's still below 60% as a provincial average. We know that there are areas in your Limpopo that are still dry and are still recovering as well. So those are some of the places where we are still keenly looking at what kind of recharges can happen. And we are hoping that with the kind of healthy rains that are falling recently, that can also, those areas can also come into the party.
You mentioned two areas I want to pick up on, the Eastern Cape and Limpopo. Let's begin with the Eastern Cape, because there, the situation was so dire that at some point people in Makanda had to rely on the likes of the gift of the givers to provide them with water. Do all communities in Makanda now have clean, reliable drinking water coming out of their taps?
In terms of reliability, that is, I think, the bigger battle that we are having, because access to infrastructure at times does not imply access to full-time water supply. But it is an area that we are still watching keenly, together with your Amatole district municipality area, as well as the areas that are supplied by the Algoa water supply system, that is your East London and other areas and so on. And we know those are the areas that are critical for industrial activities in the Eastern Cape particularly. So we still have some of those areas that are still battling.
How many people in those communities today, sir, are able to step outside the house and get water from a tap in their yard or on their street, whatever the situation is as far as tap water availability?
I wouldn't have the numbers at the top of my head, at the moment, but we know that it is the larger portion of the population. Where we do have those kind of difficulties are obviously in your more rural areas that have not had infrastructure developed over time. And that is part of where we are, looking at the kind of augmentation schemes that would be able to assist those kind of areas. But also looking at the fact that part of what needs to be done, and that includes your Nelson Mandela Bay Metro and so on, part of what needs to be done in essence as well is to identify and locate the leakages along the system, because it is not really worth it to pump more water into a system that also loses water along the way without that water reaching its end users. So that's one of the things that we are really talking to the municipalities about, and actually working towards ensuring that that kind of work gets off the ground.
But it's an unacceptable situation when you consider some of these communities have been battling the same issues from about 2017, some say 2016 and 2018.
It is, but you must remember that 2017-18 where the tail end was the tail end of the long drawn-out drought that we had in the country. But in those kind of areas, you find that the recharge that we have seen across most of the country did not quite happen in the catchments that supply those systems. So that would then have elongated the drought as we have seen it. But obviously, what we are doing now is to look at how we can be able to couple the recharge, no matter how slowly it is happening, to availability over the long term, so that we can ensure our storage capacity is actually much stronger than what it has been over time.
But how much of it, Sputnik, is due to a failure at human management level of the water resources in that part of the country?
It is a large part. When we went through to the Eastern Cape as part of the ministers' working sessions with provinces, that is one of the things that has been top of his battle with, or rather his consideration and conversations with both province as well as the municipalities, the responsible municipalities as water service authorities to say, it is well and good to say you might need more of whatever it may be, but the issue is to take care of the first things first, and that is to locate, identify, and make sure that the water losses, whether it be through leaks, whether it be through illegal connections, but as well as your illegal obstructions and so on, are actually taken care of. And that is why even our enforcement unit has had to come strongly upon some of the people that are actually working and operating outside of the prescripts of their water use licenses.
And when can these people expect to have all of this resolved?
It is an ongoing thing, because all of the works that are on the ground have got different timelines in terms of when those would be completed. For instance, if we look at the area around Nelson Mandela and the fact that the Newzroom upgrade is almost complete, so that should be completed in the earliest early part of 2022, and that would resolve a lot of the matters around Kabeja and other areas. When you look at the fact that there is the upgrade of the canal that actually carries water from your Vaal Dam in the Free State through to the Eastern Cape, that is going to be able to assist in terms of water availability on a longer term, because that canal is used precisely to come in at certain times when there is a need for that water to come through.
Quick final one then before we wrap. You mentioned Limpopo. We know the big story there is to do with the Giyani bulk water project. At some point there were even reports, I think we also carried one here in Newzroom Afrika, of a situation that was so desperate that people were doing their laundry, fetching water from the same source where animals were going to drink. How much progress has been made in making sure that those people have a clean alternative for water access while we wait for the actual project to be completed?
Well, when we were there in November, I think early December, we had a conversation together with the municipality and the contractor, particularly, to say how soon can we bring forward, the activities around the Giyani bulk water supply scheme, so that we can bring this matter to a close. And the latest date they gave us was September of 2022. But obviously, part of what was discussed and through the encouragement of the minister was that if the contractor could work even closer to the holidays in this December and open much earlier in the new year in order to make up for the lost time, probably we could even see an earlier completion of the work that needs to be done than the September, which is the ideal in terms of what the contractors are saying. But obviously, in the meantime, what is happening is that the municipalities have been informed that what they need to be doing in the meantime is to bring in alternative resources, and that would include your water cutting, but that water cutting would also need to be managed very closely, because it is not meant to be a cash cow for other people, but it is supposed to bring relief to the people in the community.
I quickly want to circle back to the issue we began with, and that is of the rain and the dams filling up. Now that the likes of the Vaal Dam, for example, have reached 100% capacity, what is going to be done with the access water to make sure that we keep as much of that as is possible in the event that it gets so hot that we're again waiting for rains for weeks, months on end?
Well, with relation to the integrated Vaal River system, the dams there are operating quite optimally, and we know that through the work of rainwater, we are able to ensure security of supply for Gauteng in its largest. So we are quite confident of the fact that we will be able to go through this period, and particularly go through the next dry winter season with sufficient water to take us to the very end of the dry season.
Sputnik Ratau.